I call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Adams. Here. Akers. Here. Anders. Here. Archer. Here. Arnaldi. Here. Bergston. Here. Bogener. Here. Bolar. Here. Brickerud. Here. Dinez. DeMoranville. Dahl. Here. Elliott. Oh, Flores. Here. Fuller. Here. Garcia. Here. Garrity. Here. Grandy. Here. Henderson. Here. Hyen. Here. Ho. Hughes. Jackson. Here. Jewell. Here. Kallenberger. Here. Kelly. Here. Klein. Here. Lonker. Here. Maples. Here. Markle. Here. Martin. Here. McDermott. Here. McIntyre. Here. Martinez. Meyer. Here. Nichols. Here. Nedry. Here. Nordstrom. Ogren. Here. Orth. Here. Oxler. Penny. Here. Papoon. Here. Pitts. Here. Pruitt. Here. Renz. Rosenpour. Here. Tedrow. Here. Thomas. Here. Tuttle. Here. Valdez. Wishkop. Works. Here. Zwick. Here. Bothwell. Here. Carpenter. Here. Grover. Here. Hornung. Here. Horton. Here. Houghton. Here. Jabin. Here. Keekly. Here. Karamali. Cranha. Carnot. Cronha. Here. Kellerman. Here. King. Here. McAdam. Here. Malberg. Here. Matt Candless. Here. Meinhardt. Here. Peckert. Here. Pelton. Here. Putnam. Here. Roth. Here. Salverino. Shaw. Wheeler. Here. Whitmer. Here. Zwick. What is it? She's here. She's here. Okay.
No, Witzke.
Witzke. There we go. Sorry. And then Zeke. Zyke. Nope. Okay. We have 45 interns or 45 senators present, and 23 interns present.
All right. With that, we'll move into our first open period. Our first open period speaker is Greg Willems, President and CEO of the KSU Foundation.
You can clap. So I want to thank the Student Government Association for inviting me to speak tonight. In particular, Tendai, where are you, buddy? In the back. So Tendai is one of my favorites, serves on our KSU Student Foundation. Enjoyed getting to know him over the last couple of years. Appreciate your service. And I want to say thank you to all of you for your service to Kansas State. I'm not a big mic guy. Can you hear me well enough?
We're live streaming.
Oh, are you?
So,
okay. Yeah. For those virtually with us. So I enjoy the privilege of serving as the KSU Foundation President and CEO. I've been here just shy of 3 years. Prior to coming to K-State, I was at the University of Hawaii Foundation for 4 years, where I served as the vice president. An exotic, fun place to be, but K-State has been near and dear to mine and my wife's heart since we came here. I have the privilege of leading an incredible organization. We were founded in 1944. Since our founding, we've raised over $2 billion for Kansas State University in a variety of different ways. Couple of things, so I'll just share a few other tidbits about what we do and how we operate, why it's important, and then I'll hit a couple of things Tendai asked me to, and then we'll open it up for questions. So our primary mission is to serve Kansas State through securing philanthropic gifts and managing those gifts that benefit Kansas State in a number of ways. And so I like to talk about the value we create in terms of the 4 food groups. So students, faculty, facilities, and then programs and research I kind of lump together. So that's my oversimplified way of referring to those 4 core things typically are the heart and soul of what the money that we raise goes to attack at Kansas State. On average, we're raising a little over $150 million a year for Kansas State. Before everybody gets all excited about $150 million, those are commitments. So we are in the business of securing commitments now and in the future for Kansas State. So some of that is cash outright that can be spent today. Some of that is pledges over a period of time, usually 5 years, so a pretty near-term gift. And then some of it's longer-term commitments. So a big part of what we do is working with people with their estates and then other complicated assets that they may want to pledge after life. And that's a big part of the reserves that we have that will serve Kansas State for most of us many years after we've left the institution. So it's a privilege for us to be able to create that value. We also, beyond creating gifts, we also manage a large endowment. We have, as of our last reporting, over $506 million under management that actively our Chief Investment Officer and our Asset Management Committee are trying to steward to make sure that we offer a consistent payout to K-State, but also we're trying to earn a premium on top of that. So generations down the road, that wealth has grown to serve future K-Staters. So that's the second piece of value creation. And then third, we have a pretty robust real estate dimension to what we do. So for any of you, many of you have been by our building over on Kimball Avenue. A show of hands of those who've seen our building before. All right, very good. If you've been by there recently, we've got a new banner hanging down there that I'll talk about in a minute that highlights our new brand identity and speaks very loudly about how we want to serve Kansas State. But beyond that, next door to that is phase 2 of our office complex. And so these facilities were built to attract partner companies who want to tap the great talent here at Kansas State, both in our students and our faculty and research, and are looking for ways to tap into innovation that will help them be successful as companies. And so right now, we've got about 30% of that building leased. Our expectation is by December, it'll be 50% leased, and in August of 18, when we open, we hope we'll be at a little over 70%. So beyond those 2 buildings, we have other properties, a research park and then office park that we plan to develop out over the next 20 or so years. And that revenue will help support our budget and bring value back to Kansas State University. So a couple of the other things that I think would be important to talk about. Well, now that my phone is shut down, that's always good. It's good for live streaming too. So one of the things I was asked to talk about is priority and decisions and how they're made at the foundation and what we do. So at the end of the day, certainly as the CEO, I lead and guide our team through the day-to-day kind of governance and administration of how we operate. But when it comes down to the decisions of where do we focus our time and energy and how do we set priorities for the university, those are set by the university leadership. And so that means the president, provost, and the deans are the cohort that we speak with the most, but they really identify what are their critical needs and emerging opportunities that we're going to focus on when we're out talking with donors about priorities. We certainly have a huge emphasis on scholarships. Obviously, that's near and dear to everybody's heart here, I'm sure. We believe that all scholarships address need in some way, shape, or form, but they are used differently by the university. Now, how they tactically apply those and administer those are all university decisions. But we do work with the deans and at the higher level, Pat Bosco and his team, to identify, what's the rate of growth that we're trying to achieve and what's the targeted use of those scholarships. So I think that's incredibly important for this group to know, is that my leadership team and I are not sitting down and deciding what we're going to do. We talk with the leadership, and then that translates into how we put into action how we're going to go out and mobilize our staff. One of the exciting things I think that I would highlight, since need-based scholarships and just the cost of tuition has gone up so much, we've put a lot of emphasis over the last 5 to 6 years on this. So prior to my coming here, about 6.5, 7 years ago, we had a little over $8 million in scholarship aid that we were delivering to campus. And today, I'm proud to say that we're delivering over $18 million a year. So we've had a pretty exponential growth in that infusion of assets to Kansas State. One of the other things we had, many of you may be familiar with our trustees group. That's an incredibly engaged group of former K-Staters and non-K-Staters. The trustees are a big part of our volunteer network. There's over 320 of them. And just to give you some magnitude of their commitment and passion for K-State, so we've been in this billion-dollar campaign for a while, and during the campaign, those 320 individuals have committed over $350 million of our over $1 billion raised. So they are very, very significant, passionate advocates, ambassadors, and investors in K-State. But at our recent trustee meeting a few weeks ago, we shared and showcased a matching gift opportunity that we had rolled out. It was a scheme that we came up with that we thought would leverage giving to Kansas State. So we had an undesignated bequest that came to us that allowed us some flexibility to choice to where to put that. We created 20 matching scholarships. So these are going to be $50,000 endowments in perpetuity, plus they have $10,000 of cash readily available for every account to be spent on students now. We rolled that out, and within 2 months, we had basically gotten all of those committed to. So the foundation is incredibly focused on addressing need-based aid. Scholarships is just one part of it. One of the other things we've been doing is supporting the Open Alternative Textbook Initiative. So I couldn't commend the Student Government Association and the university more for seeding that initiative. The faculty partnership there was strong. At our last meeting, we committed another $75,000 to convert those courses, and we're going to commit similar tranches of money basically every year to continue that program, because we think it has a lot of promise. And then one of the other recent commitments we made is some funding to the food pantry. So we taught our trustees a lot about the food insecurity students are dealing with, and we made a financial commitment to that. So one of the other things Tendai asked me to speak about is I spoke a little bit about priority projects, and certainly scholarships have been a high point, but we've certainly had a lot of facilities going up around campus. And so those are a priority for some of our deans. We're very proud that the business school building, architecture, planning and design, engineering, and certainly many other athletics facilities have been completed. But currently underway, we're working on a project for McCain Auditorium. We have about half the fundraising done for that. The library expansion is one we're particularly interested in. We think it's going to touch all the students. That's about a $6.5 million project. We recently celebrated a $3 million gift from 2 of our trustees, Dave and Ellie Everett. We've raised some more than that, but we hope that within the next 6 months we'll have that fundraising done and be able to do that complete modernization of Hale Library, which is going to serve all the student body. The Multicultural Center is something else I was asked to talk about. So I came on board after the initial vision was kind of laid out, but not a lot of work had been done since then. Over the last year, President Myers, Provost April Mason, and Pat Bosco have done a lot of work with student groups and faculty to try to get our arms around how to best move this forward. They decided to do a pause and wait till that. Wow, I didn't know I was on a timer. That's a good thing with somebody who's comfortable speaking. But anyway, the Multicultural Center, you know, we really need leadership's direction on that. And I think they wanted to bring in these other two diversity and inclusion leaders that are going to help guide Kansas State University in a substantial way to do this right. And so I will say we are still out talking with donors about this project. We are securing gifts for that. So we aren't waiting. We are waiting for final decisions and leadership, but we're still maintaining momentum on that project as we go along. So we think hopefully once those two new leaders are on board, the president and provost and Pat Bosco, our VP for Student Life, will lay out with those two new leaders exactly what's the kind of project that we need to achieve here that's going to accomplish the mission of improving our diversity and inclusion efforts at Kansas State. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions or focus on anything you guys would like to talk about. Trenton?
Yep, go ahead and take it.
What?
Go ahead.
Okay. So let's talk about the business building.
Okay.
Because you talked about infrastructure projects. And a lot of us in this room sat on tuition and fees strategies committee last year and got a full kind of expose to the process behind the business building and how the president made commitments at the time that weren't really there, how there was a pressure cooker to make a commitment on behalf of the university to get this project going. So I'd like to hear how and all of us in here now are paying for the college business building. So I'd like to hear how has the foundation changed its processes to make sure that students aren't put in a bind for something they didn't.
Sure. No, it's a great question and a great example of, you know, something when I came on board, that commitment had been made. Kirk Schultz and the leadership at the time felt it was imperative to make a signature commitment to inspire others to participate. We were very fortunate that the end result of that was over $45 million of private philanthropy that came to work for that building, which is very significant. But that commitment had to be dealt with, and I think at the time, once the fundraising was completed and they were dealing with closing out the financial package, the university had to secure what was the revenue stream that was going to deal with that. The decision of how they came to a student fee, I really don't know much about. I do know that a lot of the classrooms and other space are to be used university-wide. That was shared. But there is certainly a fee that's going to be in place for some time to cover the rest of that. To offer some optimism on that, fundraising is not concluded or been completed. There's still naming opportunities and other ways that we're trying to generate gifts for that building that could offset that over time. And I would expect this group would talk with leadership to find out between the Dean of Business as other gifts come in how that offset will work.
Awesome. Further questions? Caucus Leader Pitts.
Mr. Williams, a lot of other universities work really closely with their alumni associations in order to build relationships with donors and bringing those bigger gifts throughout the year and in the future. So what is our foundation's relationship with the Alumni Center and how do we use that relationship to move the university forward?
Sure. Great question. So it's exceptionally good. So this is the fourth institution of higher education that I've worked at in my capacity as a professional. And I will attest that the relationship between alumni, athletics, and the foundation is the strongest I've ever seen at any other institution. I worked at Texas A&M, I worked at University of British Columbia and University of Hawaii. Unfortunately, many of those organizations, partner institutions, didn't really talk to each other that much. So with Amy Button-Renz, the president and CEO, my counterpart, we have a tremendous relationship. She serves on my board, I serve on her board, as do our chairs of our respective boards. So we have good communication and linkage about what we're doing, synchronized in how we're going out and trying to build relationships and do fundraising. So Amy comes and meets with us regularly on prospective donors that we're working with to make sure that we harness the full capabilities of what alumni's organization and their relationships are to bear on that. So there's great linkage there for us. Yeah. So let me touch on one other thing Trenton asked me about that I neglected to mention. So he asked, how do we make sure that as we go into these projects, we don't have an unmet burden that has to be addressed in kind of a different way. So we have a feasibility process that we use, and as professionals in what we do, we can hit pretty close to the center of the dartboard of what the likelihood of raising a certain amount of money is for a particular project. And it varies based on projects. The library project is a great example. You're going to have a very, very small subset of people who would be aligned with that, passionate about it, and have a connection to it, versus a college or a unit building where you'd have a lot of alumni who had an experience with that and might appreciate it. So when we have a dean or a college or the university president come to us with a project, we sit down and look at what's the dollar amount that needs to be raised privately. And we do an analysis, a capacity analysis of what we think can be achieved. And then we give them that, and that has to be reconciled. And so we don't, at this point anymore, allow projects to go out that have an excess beyond the fundraising capacity and whatever state need may be there. So the library project, McCain, a lot of the others have gone through this process. And what the university has learned is just because we can dream it doesn't mean it's going to be practically possible. So that's one of the measures we have in place that goes through our development committee. My senior vice president for development, myself, and others sit on that with board members. And it's a very rigorous process now to make sure we don't come into this kind of a situation again.
Time for the speaker has expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Martin. It's moved and seconded to extend by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, got 5 more minutes for questions. President Ayers.
First of all, I'll say thanks so much for answering Trent's question. I think that's a great one, something that a lot of students are concerned about. So I appreciate your input on that. Question, I don't know if you're able to answer this or not, but I was curious. Would you be able to tell us what businesses are going to be a part of the Phase 2 building? President Myers has talked a lot about the Silicon Valley, Manhattan, that whole thing. So.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest in a couple of theme areas. So what I'll call the architectural and engineering building design area. So McCown Gordon Construction will come in there. They're a regional contracting firm. They do a lot of work locally and in Kansas City, but they're taking some space. LAD Global, so a K-Stater owned company. So they manufacture scrubs for laboratory environments infused with Teflon and something else. So there's antimicrobial qualities. And so the innovation of their product is something they want to do more business in this area. We've got a number of animal and zoonotic disease companies working on vaccinations and other kinds of things related to the whole animal health corridor theme. Jinyu is a large international player in that market, and they're taking 2 suites. Those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. Greg Lorenz, our CFO, stick handles this day to day and would give you a full list. But that's kind of an example of the ones that have committed so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Further questions, Senator Martin?
With the McCain Renovation Project, is that focused only on the auditorium itself, or also where the classrooms are?
It's focused more on the classroom and then an extension out from the kind of the main entryway that would provide more of an atrium gathering place before and after productions. It would have some unique showcase space upstairs where smaller venue activities, lectures could be given, a smaller concert, for a cellist to come in and do a smaller production like that. But and I think there's going to be bathroom modernization and renovation, and just to make it a much more capable facility for the kind of entertaining and the kind of production that we want to bring. We learned a lot about McCain. Within a 200-mile radius, McCain has a heck of a lot of draw. And they have a great forum and series every year. They do a phenomenal job. So it's really a treasure in Manhattan, but within that mile radius, even in Kansas City, we have people coming down quite often for that. So we think it's a great asset for Kansas State, for the community, and for our students. And so that's kind of how we've looked at that project.
Further questions?
Tendai, did I miss anything? Got most of it?
All righty. If not, thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Our next first open period speaker is Tim Lindemuth. He is not able to make it here tonight, so we will move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Oh, is there any further speakers for first open period? Seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion? Senator Papoon? It is moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections, the minutes will be approved as presented. With that, we'll move into announcements. On the second page of your agenda are the announcements for today. Just want to direct you to a couple of them real quick. If you're interested in serving on a short-term allocations committee, such as the Academic Competition Teams Committee, Student-Centered Tuition Enhancements, or the Sports Clubs Allocation Committee, there's a link to apply there as well. Also, if you're interested in serving on the SGA Attorney General Recommendation Committee, please let me know, as I need 3 student senators to serve in that role. The SGA Week Work Group is working on gathering ideas for SGA Week. So if you have any ideas that you'd like to suggest to the group, there's a Google document there to add suggestions to. Also, if you may remember from last year, we funded PAWS, which is Peer Advocates for Mental Wellness. It's a peer education course that prepares students to make timely, informative presentations about various mental wellness topics to their peers across campus. That class is opening up, and it's on October 23rd to enroll for next semester. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Wendy Barnes, and she has more information on that program. Proxies for this evening: Thomas for Albers, Zwick for Swanson, Hyen for Elliott, Bogner for Kidd. Also, SGA members of the week this week go to Senator Jake McIntyre and Caucus Leader Ramin Rosenport. Senator McIntyre is recognized for being a positive role model to young senators and interns alike, and acting as an active involved member in the Privilege Fee Committee. Also, Caucus Leader Rosenport is recognized for his great work on the GR Committee, creating a forum to gather questions for the local elections candidates. And then also, he coordinated a voter registration drive with UPC earlier this week. Let's give our 2 Senator of the Weeks a round of applause. Also, you can see on the upcoming events calendar the things coming up in the next 2 weeks. And on the back side is our quote of the week. This is from Benjamin Franklin. An investment in knowledge pays the best dividend, or pays the best interest. Sorry, there we go. So with that, we will continue on with our agenda to approval of appointments. And I apologize as I did not get Resolution 28 included with the agenda. But Attorney General Hanneman is going to come forward to read that. Is there a motion for Resolution 28? Speaker Pro Tem Moore Mignani. It's moved and seconded to consider Resolution 28. Would the author please come forward?
All right, Resolution 171828, approval of Elections Commissioner by Jack Ayers, Haley Hanneman, and Jonathan Pushin. Whereas the Elections Commissioner is jointly appointed by the Student Body President, Speaker of the Student Senate, and Attorney General. Whereas this position was sufficiently advertised. Whereas applications were made available to all students who showed interest in the position of Elections Commissioner. Whereas, according to the Kansas State University Student Governing Association bylaws, Article 1, Section 2, the Elections Commissioner shall be appointed and approved by Student Senate by the 3rd Thursday of October, and whereas one application was received. Be it resolved that Section 1, Corbin Sedlacek be approved to serve as the Elections Commissioner for the 2017-2018 term.
All right. With that, are there any corrections? Is there any debate on the positive? Any debate on the negative? Any debate at all? With that, is there a motion to approve this resolution? Senator McIntyre. It is moved and seconded to approve Resolution 28 unanimously. All of those, if there are no objections, Resolution 28 will be approved unanimously. Corbin, will you come forward, please? Raise your right hand and say, I will at the end. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Elections Commissioner and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association.
I will.
Awesome. Would you introduce yourself with name, major, hometown, and favorite smell?
All right. I'm Corbin Sedlacek, a sophomore in accounting, minor in lead studies. I am born and raised in Manhattan, Kansas. And my favorite smell, you said?
Yes, sir.
I really enjoy the smell of fresh baked mulch.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, we will move into committee reports. On the 5th page of the agenda are the committee reports for the week. Are there any questions on the reports included with the agenda? If not, are there any committee chairs that would like to make an additional report? Seeing none, we will move into directors' reports. There are also directors' reports on the 5th page of the agenda. Are there any questions on the included directors' reports? If not, are there any directors that would like to make a report? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani.
Hi guys. I thought maybe I should talk a little bit about SGA Week since everybody just keeps on hearing but probably don't know what it entails. But basically the whole purpose behind SGA Week is an opportunity for us to be able to bridge a much closer relationship with the rest of the student body. I think you guys, as you can tell, that you know, the climate of campus, especially when it comes to some of the racial issues that have popped up, you know, some of the times, you know, a lot of students are now looking towards SGA for like a lot of looking towards for us for answers and everything. And I think SGA Week would be probably a great way to connect and bridge all the different diversities that we have here on campus. The idea of SGA Week will be compromised into 3 categories. We want to have educational. I think it's important that students be aware of some of the opportunities and resources that are on campus. I'm very grateful that we have participation from all 3 branches helping to willing to help with that. Also, not only do we just want to be seen as these serious people as well, we're also going to have some fun, engaging activities. Just to mention a little fun one, there's one that popped up about pieing all of our 3 head branches, so that could be fun. And then also, not only do we just want to have fun activities, but also we also want to have opportunities for us for development and self-reflection, because I think that's also important for us as student leaders to recognize. So there is a link. If you're interested to have access to that link, feel free to text me and I can just shoot you an email so that you can add more ideas to it. And then we are meeting this Sunday in the CSI conference room at 3 p.m. to continue brainstorming ideas and start like moving forward of how things will look like. And lastly, if you're really good with like graphic designing, PR kind of stuff, holla at your boy. I'm gonna need some help with that. So yeah.
Awesome. With that,
one more thing, I forgot. I'm gonna be sending out a survey, the demographic survey that we did last year. So that will be sent very soon this week. So please fill it out. Otherwise, I don't want to use my director's report time to have you guys fill it out. Appreciate y'all. Questions?
Questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani.
All right. See you on Sunday.
President Ayers.
All right, just want to talk about a couple things going on this week. I want to start off on a note about the Snapchat taking over the weekend. The first thing I want to say is that I've heard, through some comments on social media and some comments specifically on a Collegian article, that there, and I've heard, and I don't know how many people are saying this, but a couple people that have said that talking about the issue, talking about the Snapchat, is done to inflame racial tensions or something that would just exacerbate a problem. And I want to push back on that a lot and say that I really disagree with that, and that really makes me pretty frustrated and mad, because I think that talking about the issues at hand are the best way to solve them. Talking about them and then using that as action to move forward is what we need to be doing. I know that's happening. There are lots of different groups across the campus. I think a large part of SGA included that see the Snapchat as a reminder of how we need to be doing better as a university in regards to cultural competency, and we need to be working with the administration on that. And so when you hear things about individuals saying that any discussion about the Snapchat is just inflaming racial tensions is really, I think, not okay. So just kind of give some thoughts on that. And as we move forward, lots of groups coming together to work on that and to move the needle on cultural competency and other objectives. A couple other things going on. First of all, I had a meeting about the natatorium this week.
with some pretty interesting news about a challenge that they've had at the Nat in regards to people getting sick from chemicals there in the pool, and something about, just the Senator McIntyre shaking his head. It's been a big challenge, and people are getting sick, and it's a little unsafe. There's some concerns about side panels falling off the side of the building. So lots of issues there, and hopefully we're going to invest a little bit into a study to do a full inclusive study. A couple of years ago, or it was like 10 years ago, there was a study that said it would cost $8 million to renovate all the issues wrong with the Nat. That was 10 years ago. So I'm really curious to see what it looks like now, and that might be do something with the Nat. Could involve a wrecking ball. So we'll see. I'll keep everybody updated. A couple of things. Promise I'll try to be quick. The academic infrastructure support fee, which Director Kennedy referenced in his question to President Williams, is the one that is paying for the remaining balance in the business building, but also using $1 million a year that's going to go to renovate classroom buildings. We had our first working group meeting where we looked at old data that had been taken about problem classrooms on campus, and we are going back out trying to create a new survey that will be released to the community here sometime in November, which will allow individuals to give input on classrooms that are bad. And try to isolate priorities as a group that we can use that $1 million a year for. It might have to be multi-phase programs, depending on what's going on. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that data and seeing where the problems are and how we can work to address that. It's entirely student-directed funds, and that's been really interesting to look at that data so far. Final thing I would say is in regards to the Board of Regents. We're here this week on Tuesday and Wednesday. SGA and the Graduate Student Council got the opportunity to sit down with them on Wednesday morning and really had a pretty candid conversation about challenges that we are concerned about in regards to diversity and inclusion, regards to tuition and fees, and then also got to take the Graduate Student Council talked a lot about challenges that are specific to grad students. But I think that provides a really good opportunity to have some direct interaction with the Board of Regents, and I think that they will be leaving hopefully with a better indication of how things are on our campuses. Is Director Hopfinger here? Did he leave? Okay. I was going to report one thing in regards to something that that he had been working on with him is in regards to the alcohol policy at the student tailgates on game days. So the policy indicates now that there is no limit to the amount of supplies that you can bring to the stadium or to that tailgate area with you, but the police had been taking their fair share of said supplies. They've been taking them saying that you can't bring that in. And so it's a policy that doesn't exist right now. So we're working with our general counsel, or I've reached out to general counsel, talked to Cheryl Strucker on the phone yesterday for a little bit about this, and hopefully that we'll be able to kind of get some traction on that and be able to move the needle there. So that is all I have. Can't believe I kept it under my time. It's a great day. Are there any questions for me?
Questions for President Ayers? Caucus Leader Rostenpour.
Do you believe in regards to the alcohol issue that you would put in a policy limiting it, or what is the direction you take on that?
That's one of the things that when we met, it was a student went to Sarah Barr, campus attorney, and then she came to SGA, and we all sat down, and that's one of the things that Sarah said is, basically that they either need to stop enforcing a policy that doesn't exist or create the policy. So, I'm not quite sure whichever way that would go on that, but for now, trying to make sure, what is the policy? Is there a state or local policy that I can't seem to find? As to why that would happen. So, I'll keep everybody updated on that. That's a good question, though.
Further questions? Seeing none, thanks for coming up.
Thanks.
Vice President Ballman.
Hi, everybody. So yesterday was kind of an exciting day for K-State. There was a partnership created with the Give Something Back Foundation. So this is a needs-based scholarship program that's Pell Grant eligible students. A couple other requirements, but really focus on first-generation college students, incarcerated parents, children of incarcerated parents, and children in the foster system. So Kansas is actually now the 7th state of this program, so it's really exciting, and Brian Williams will be working on this program. And so basically they select 9th graders, so working with high schools in the region to select some 9th graders, and they have to go through some qualifications, but I believe the number was $50 million. Dr. Bosco is confirming that, but a pretty good number, so it's a really exciting program and definitely something that we're interested in continuing. Jonathan mentioned, or Speaker Pushin mentioned earlier, the PAUSE program. So that's actually the past administration, Van Rankin Kennedy administration, one of their initiatives that I got to closely work on last year on their cabinet. So this is Mental Health Advocates. It's a class you can take, so definitely spread the word. It's a really awesome program. You become certified and kind of are throughout campus sharing the word of mental health and resources on campus. Next, the Associate Vice President of Student Life, Diversity, Multicultural Student Affairs. It's the longest job title in the entire world, I think. So we are currently underway with on-campus interviews. So we had our first candidate today. Her name was Dr. Renee Wilson. Gave an open forum. There's 3 more, so those are next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I filled your inbox last night with those dates, so please make sure to attend if you can. I think it's a vital opportunity for SGA presence, student presence, faculty, staff, our whole campus community. With recent events on campus, as well as just overall our focus on furthering diversity, inclusion, and equity on our campus, it's incredibly important we get the right person in there to do the right job. So I highly encourage you to attend and ask questions in those. And I think it's also a really good opportunity for interns or freshmen, sophomores who aren't really familiar with the Multicultural Student Center. So these candidates have been asked to present about what their vision would be for the Multicultural Student Center and how they could further it. So it gives you a little bit of background too, but I highly encourage you to attend those. It's incredibly important. And then lastly, Educational Opportunity Fund Committee, we just recently met, and we will have 28 proposals. I'm sharing that committee this year, and we will be having legislation to you all in November for those allocations. Yeah.
With that, are there any questions for Vice President Ballman? All right, thank you. Are there any further director's reports? If not, I've got one real quick. Speaker Pro Tempore, if you come on down.
It's good to be back.
All righty. I just want to make a couple of quick announcements real quick to everyone. First off, tomorrow afternoon at noon, there's going to be a brown bag luncheon with the Office of Governmental Relations here at K-State. And they're going to have Sean Sullivan, the budget director for the state of Kansas, present at that. And they'd love to have you there. And there's going to be free cookies and drinks served if you make it there. So really good opportunity to learn a lot of information about how our budget works on the state level. With that, I want to provide a little informative presentation today about how the legislation process works here in Student Senate, how everything works from when an author writes a bill on towards the end when it gets sent someplace. So kind of the reason behind this is earlier this semester, just a couple of weeks ago, we realized that the legislation that you all had been writing as student senators had not been getting sent forward to all the list of names that had been included at the bottom of the agenda. And for that, we're really sorry. I know when I sat in your chairs as a student senator, it was my expectation that when we passed a piece of legislation, all those people listed at the bottom would get a chance to see it, and they'd be able to hear the voices of students here at K-State. So with that, I want to address the whole scope of our legislation process, so that way everybody can see how they can write a piece of legislation, where they might be able to find some draft copies that they can edit and use as a template for the legislation they write, where to submit it to, and then how it flows through the entire process. And then I'm also going to share at the very end what our solution is to making sure that legislation gets sent forward in the future. So with that, we'll step on into this real quick. If you're drafting a resolution, there's lots of legislation you can find on the OrgSync portal for SGA. If you search in the legislation folder, there's a lot of different drafts you can find. Once you've written a draft resolution, it'll look just like this over here. I don't know, can you guys see my laser pointer on there? There we go. So yeah, right there. That's what it typically looks like. That's an example of a travel allocations right there. They'll draft a piece of legislation, whether it be a bill, a resolution, a commendation, all sorts of things. And they can seek additional authors who would like to be sponsor that bill or resolution. And then the first task, once you get the legislation drafted, is to make sure it gets submitted to the Senate Operations Committee. So one can submit a piece of legislation to the Senate Ops Committee by going to the SGA OrgSync portal, and then go to the Files tab, which is there at the top. Then go to the Legislation folder, which is under Files. And then the step number 1 is Submit to Senate Ops. So if you go ahead and upload your piece of legislation into that folder, the next step will automatically happen, which is Senate Ops reviews, edits, and moves the piece of legislation into introduction. So on Monday nights, about 8 o'clock, I think is when they meet, is when they'll review all the legislation. Please make sure it's submitted before 3 o'clock, though, so that way they can make sure they get it printed off or sent to the computers, so that way they can make those edits. And then following the meeting, after they've reviewed it, made any grammatical changes to it, they will move it to folder number 2, which is the introduction folder, so that way it can get brought forward to Senate. So once it gets put in that folder late on Monday night, you guys see when the emails come with the first draft of the agenda, is when I'll add the pieces of legislation that have gotten put in the introduction folder to the agenda, so that way we can see those on Thursday night. So you can see right there, they get added to the agenda. The next step is it becomes Thursday night. It's time to introduce a piece of legislation. And so how that works is the legislation is read by the author. So you've all seen that a couple of times before, I'm sure, where there's a motion made, and then the author comes forward, reads it, and there's a time for corrections and questions. If anybody has any questions or corrections, suggestions for the piece of legislation. And then at the end of Senate, it gets referred to a committee. And so that following the meeting, the parliamentarian will move the legislation to folder number 3. You can see it right there, which has all the different committees that we have. So that way they can consider that legislation during their committee meeting over the weekend and make a motion to refer it back to Senate. So addressing specifically the committee consideration process, they have 4 different options with what they can do with a piece of legislation. And so that includes referring it favorably back to Senate, referring it unfavorably back to Senate, referring it to Senate with no suggestion or with no recommendation, or they can elect to hold it in committee for another week.
Time for the speakers expired. Is there a motion? Caucus Leader Roston-Poe.
I extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
That is great. Hopefully I don't use all that.
It's been seconded and moved that the speaker's time be extended by 10 minutes. Then objections? Seeing none, you got 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. So yeah, we often see a lot of time the legislation is referred back favorably, but do understand that you are able to use those other 3 options. I know a couple of those have even been used within this year. So that way, after the committee has made a recommendation, it's up to the chair of that committee to make sure it gets moved into the final action folder. And so when it's in the final action folder, they also will include the vote that the committee had, whether it was passed favorably 8-0, whether it was passed with no recommendation 7-2, something like that. They'll just include that as they upload a new comment or a new version of the bill if there were any changes as well that were made in committee. With that, it then again makes it back to Senate. So it gets added to the agenda under the final action heading, which isn't included on my picture there. But it's considered during final action. The author will address any changes that have been made to the legislation. Then they'll have the first right to debate. So they'll be able to say what their thoughts were on the bill, why everybody should support it. And then we'll follow with debate, alternating with the negative, following up with them, and then going back and alternating positives and negatives after that. And then voting, we'll vote on that after we either exhaust debate or previous question is called. Bills require a roll call vote, while resolutions require a voice vote. So that's the in our standing rules as to what is needed. Following the meeting, our Student Senate parliamentarian moves the legislation into the ready to be certified folder. So that way we can certify all of the legislation that we pass here through Student Senate. So the certification process is largely done by the Student Senate Secretary. She will upload the legislation into a template that includes certified legislation across the top. and a block for signatures for our student body president to make sure that it's correct. And then she will also print and deliver it to get the signatures that it needs. Amy, she is our accountant. She's in charge of collecting all the legislation once it's got signatures, and then scanning a copy into our files. So with that, here comes the next step of making sure that legislation gets sent to the right people who are listed at the bottom of a resolution. So with the process of sending legislation, we're going to try to send it via mail. So we're going to have each author create a mail merge of selected recipients. One reason we put this on the author was so that they would, as they write their resolution, if they want to put 60 different people to send it to, they can find all 60 addresses. So that way it's not one of our SGA leaders spending their time doing that. And then, the author will also draft a cover letter to accompany the legislation. So if we're sending our piece of legislation to, say, Senator Moran in Washington, D.C., it'd just be a brief cover letter that would say why Senator Moran's receiving this legislation, just as a little introduction, because the legislation should have most of the content that would be included with that letter. And then so our Speaker Pro Tempore, he has graciously volunteered to coordinate this whole process to make sure that once the cover letters and the mail merges are received, making all of that work together so we can print labels, print letters, and make sure the legislation gets sent out. And so with that, that will complete the whole legislation process. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions that any of you all might have on the legislation process or about the GR Office brown bag. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Senator Kelly?
How does an author create a mail merge? Or like, what is a mail merge?
Yep, so we will have a template that we'll send out to the authors. And we'll also have templates of cover letters just to make that process a little bit easier. Pretty much what it'll be is it'll be an Excel file where it'll include the recipient's title, first name, middle name, last name, and then the address that it needs to be sent to. And then once it's put in that Excel file, we're able to take that and we will create the mail merge for that. So, yeah.
Senator Tuttle, that's it.
So, great question. What we're working on there is we're looking at which ones are still relevant. I know some issues that we worked on resolutions for have passed. And so we're not going to send those since the timeline that would be relevant for those has expired. But there are at least one that we've identified that is still relevant and that we're going to make sure it gets sent out to the people so that way they know how students at K-State feel about that issue. So.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
That we will move into, are there any further director's reports? Seeing none. Oh. Yep. Chief of Staff Keel.
I just wanted to clarify about the legislation that we sent out from the previous year and a half. So we went through, there were 3 pieces that haven't gone through completely that we're still kind of working in the process. So we sent out one about ARH policies for elections, just so we made sure they were aware of what we had said about the policies for students kind of campaigning within those bounds. And we also sent one about transgender bathrooms. So that's in the process of being sent out to the list of external people because the bills that were referenced in that resolution haven't been passed through yet, so it was still relevant in that aspect. And then the third one, let me think for a second, was about career center policies as far as offer guidelines for students. So that's something we're working on again. So we just went back so they knew relevant historical context as far as what we've done. Is that good? Any questions?
Questions for Chief of Staff Keel? Seeing none, thank you. With that, are there any further director's reports? Seeing none, we will move into approval of minor allocations. The minor allocations are included in the agenda. Just to run through those real quick, Bill 9 is a travel allocation to the College of Agriculture ambassadors to travel to the National FFA Convention. They requested $800 and were recommended $800. Bill 10 is a travel allocation as well, and this is to the Creative Arts Therapy Club, travel to Boston, Massachusetts for the North American Drama Therapy Association Conference. They requested $400 and were recommended $400. Bill 11 is a travel allocation to Engineers Without Borders. They are requesting funds to travel to the Engineers Without Borders USA National Conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They're requesting $500 and are recommended $500. And then lastly, Bill 12 is a travel allocation to the KSU Army ROTC, taking 8 members to Washington, D.C. for the Army 10-miler. And this, they requested $800 and were recommended $800. With that, is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? Caucus Leader Rostenpour.
I have a correction for Bill 171811 on line 15. We discussed fixing the date.
Great. What's that? Oh, yep, I see. Line 15. We will get that corrected before we certify it. Are there further corrections to the legislation? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minor allocations? You're going to have to give me your name, sir. Intern Putnam.
I move to approve the minor allocations.
It is moved and seconded to approve the minor allocations. If there are no objections, the minor allocations will be approved. With that, we will move into final action. Will the author of Bill 8 please come forward? Are there any corrections?
Yeah, on section 45, we ended up making sure that it was the department head of the Gender, Women's Study and Sexuality Studies Department who would appoint the individual.
Awesome. First right to debate.
So, first of all, once again, I want to express and say thanks to the people who have co-authored with this bill with me. It's extremely humble that you guys came forward and saw the vision that I was trying to portray with this bill, and I'm very grateful that you guys were able to help out. Part of me, the reason why I thought this would be an important representative to put on DP's Diversity Program Committee is that when I look across our DPC committee, we have people that actually represent what it says in the bylaws of like what DPC is trying to do. Dissuade prejudice against nationality, racial issues, gender, sexuality, and all that kind of stuff. We do have representatives for all of them except for one, which is gender. And just thinking about in the past of some of the bills, some of the allocations that club organizations had requested for DPC funding. Some of them I remember last year when I was serving as International Affairs Director, there was some about they wanted to do things related with gender. And at the time, I really didn't understand much knowledge about the whole idea of gender. I had a different definition and everything. And that was because, and it didn't pass through. And, for that, it was because we lacked somebody who had the knowledge for that field. And also when I met with the Gender, Women's Studies, Sexuality Department head, Angela Huber, we were talking, and we talked about how gender always has a connection with some of the issues and the discrimination we are trying to address. It's always going to lead to this idea of power, who has the most and who hasn't. And when you think on a global scale of the issues that are going on in relating to the wage gap and all the different things that are just taking place in the world, you can be able to see that somehow, some way, the idea of gender and power is some way connected within it. And I always think about a conversation that I had with my friend back home who's in England, you know, talking about like how she's been working for a firm for a long time, but however, you know, somebody else came in and she didn't get it and she felt discriminated based on her gender identity. My other friend who tried to be a school teacher for nursery school, and he didn't get in because he was a man. It wasn't a job for a man and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's very important that those kind of things we're able to be knowledgeable and to show that it's okay to, you know, that gender roles can always be swapped, you know, like, you know, I like cooking and cleaning and, you know, spending my time in the kitchen. Most people think that's a woman's job. Nobody ever thinks that it's okay for a woman to fix a car and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I think I would highly recommend you all to please vote for this bill to pass. With that, I take questions.
Are there any questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani? Senator Kefera.
Can you elaborate on your reasoning for picking the department head of the Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies Department to appoint the member for the committee?
Yeah, good question. That's because when you look at all of the other people, like the other offices that appoint the individuals who serve on DPC, they're actually the department heads or the directors of that entity. So we wanted to keep it consistent that that individual will be the same across all board.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Is there further debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? Seeing none, we shall go into a roll call vote on Bill 8.
Adams? Yes. Akers? Yes. Anders? Yes. Archer? Yes. Arnaldi? Yes. Bergston? Yes. Bogener? Yes. Bolar? Yes. Berkerud? Dinez? De Moranville? Yes. Dahl? Yes. Elliott? Flores? Yes. Fuller? Yes. Garcia? Yes. Garrity? Yes. Grandy? Hendrickson? Yes. Hyen? Yes. Ho? Hughes? Yes. Jackson? Yes. Jewell? Yes. Kallenberger? Yes. Kelly? Yes. Klein? Yes. Lonker? Maples? Yes. Markle? Yes. Martin? Yes. McDermott? Yes. McIntyre? Yes. Martinez? Mertens? Sorry. Meyer? Yes. Nichols? Yes. Nedry? Yes. Nordstrom? Ogren? Yes. Orth? Yes. Oxler? Penny? Yes. Papoon? Yes. Pitts? Yes. Pruitt? Yes. Rins? Ravsenpour? Yes. Swanson? Yes. Tedrow? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Tuttle? Yes. Valdez? Yes, by proxy. Wishkop? Works? Yes. Zwick? Yes. All right.
Are there any senators that we forgot to call their name for?
Albers? Yes. Sorry. I have you as excused, or you were excused? Okay. Hi. Welcome. All right. And then who else?
Who was that?
Kid.
Yep.
Sorry, that was loud.
And then that's Senator Kefera.
Kefera.
I vote yes, and I was also not called for first roll call, but I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, they were all excused. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get that fixed. Also, there's a proxy for Senator Dinez.
Dinez? Who's proxy? Or
Maybe
not?
there's not. Okay, never
Maybe
mind.
not? Okay. But I'll get you. Cool. So 50.
Awesome.
50 to 0.
With a vote of 50 to 0, Bill 8 passes. With that, will the author of Bill 14 please come forward? Senator Kelly.
I move we hold bills 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 for bulk roll call.
It is moved and seconded to hold bills 14 through 19 for bulk roll call. If there are no objections, they shall be held for bulk roll call. With that, are there any corrections to Bill 14?
Yes, there are. 1 second. So on line 4, it was originally on-campus allocations committee, and that was changed to university allocations committee. And on line 41, section 1 was omitted due to redundancy, and section 2 was therefore moved up to section 1. And also on line 6, on-campus allocations needs to be changed to university. So you guys could do that.
Which, can you tell me once again which one you're changing to university?
Line 6,
Line
whereas
6.
on-campus allocations committee.
Oh, yep, that is correct. Awesome. Senator Mertens. No, that's going to stay, well, that's a bill question, I guess. In the bill title, should it say FY 2017 on-campus allocation, or should it say university allocation?
Should say FY 2018.
Okay. With that, we will also change the years. And you said on-campus allocation's good? Great. Awesome. We will make sure we get that changed. Are there any further corrections to the to Bill 14? We're gonna leave line 1 saying on-campus allocation, but the year that they're allocating for should be fiscal year 18. With that, are there further corrections? All right, seeing none, first right to debate.
So this is a pretty cool event being put on by the music department, and they specifically asked for Phi Mu Alpha to help raise some funds. Just a little synopsis. So they're bringing in Septira Brass, which is like a world-renowned music group. So for all you like music and instrument lovers out there, this would be great. It's for the whole department, so it'll affect a lot of people, and it'll really give them some world-class instructing to help refine their skills.
With that, are there any questions for the senator on his debate? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, that bill will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 15 please come forward? Any corrections?
Yes, on line 5, it was changed from on-campus allocations to university allocations committee, and then we also need to change line 7, and then line 1 needs to be changed to fiscal year 18.
Alrighty. With that, first right to debate.
I think it'd be really cool for Dr. Lee to be able to come talk to the vet students because they don't have a criticalist on their team, so it'd be a new opportunity for the vet students to hear and learn about a new job opportunity.
Any questions for Senator Mertens on her debate? Seeing none, any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? Bill 15 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 16 please come forward? Are there any corrections? Sorry.
Yeah, line 8, ALSA should be ASLA for American Society of Landscape Architects.
Awesome. Also, line 7 needs to be changed to College Allocations Committee.
Okay.
Yep. Are there any, Bill? FY18, that'll also get changed as well. Yep. With that, are there any further corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Yeah, I think this is a great bill to get them the money that they need for their trip. It'll be a good trip for them out to Los Angeles for the Landscape Architects Conference, so I urge you to pass it.
Are there any questions for Senator Hendrickson? Is that Bergsten? Sorry. Any questions for Senator Bergsten? Seeing none, are there any debate in the negative? Is there any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, Bill 16 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 17 please come forward? Any corrections?
Yeah, it'll be the same corrections on this one. We'll be changing it to FY18 on line 1, and then also to College Allocations Committee. Space to travel.
With that, are there any? Is there any further corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Yeah, I think this is a really great opportunity for students. We see a lot of educational value in it, and I urge you to vote to fund it.
All right. Is there any questions for Chair Chumlin on his debate? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? Bill 17 will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 18 please come forward? All right. Any corrections?
Yeah, same corrections as the last one. It'll be FY18 on line 1, and then on line 4 it was changed to College Allocations Committee.
With that, are there any further corrections? Yes.
Line 6.
What's your name, please?
Senator Hughes.
Senator Hughes. Awesome.
Line 6, travel allocation, university, college allocation.
Yep, we'll get that taken care of. Any further corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
All right, just another really good opportunity, and I urge you to fund it.
All right. Are there any questions for Chair Chumlin on his debate? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, Bill 18 will be held for bulk roll call. And will the author of Bill 19 please come forward? Any corrections?
The ones that we just discussed. Same ones.
All right. Are there any further corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
Kind of like the last two bills, great opportunity for Tau Beta Pi to represent us at their conference. Actually, they're there right now, I think. No, they'll be there tomorrow.
Awesome. Are there any, is there any questions on Senator Bogner's debate? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? Seeing none, we will now move into a bulk roll call on bills 14 through 19. Go.
Adams? Yes. Akers? Yes. Alberts? Yes. Anders? Yes to all. Archer? Yes to all. Arnaldi?
Yes to all.
Bergsten?
Yes to all.
Bogener?
Yes to all.
Bolar? Yes to all. Brickerud? DeMoranville?
Yes to all.
Dahl?
Yes to all.
Elliott?
Yes to all.
Flores? Fuller?
Yes to all.
Garcia? Garrity? Grandy? Hendrickson? Hyen? Ho? Hughes? Jackson? Jewell? Kallenberger? Kelly? Kidd?
Yes to all by proxy.
Klein?
Yes to all.
Lonker? Maples?
Yes to all.
Markle?
Yes to all.
Martin,
Yes to all.
McDermott,
Yes to all.
McIntyre, Mertens,
Yes to all.
Meyer,
Yes to all.
Nichols,
Yes to all.
Nedry,
Yes to all.
Nordstrom, Ogren, Orth,
Yes to all.
Oxler, Penny,
Yes to all.
Papoon, Pitts,
Yes to all.
Pruitt, Rins, Rosenpour,
Yes to all.
Swanson,
Yes to all. Right.
Tedrow,
Yes to all.
Thompson, Tuttle, Valdez,
Yes to all. By proxy.
Works.
Yes to all.
Oh, Wishkop? I missed. Nope. Schwick?
Yes to all.
All right. And a bulk roll call, 45.
Yes.
Oh, Senator Farah. Sorry. All right, 46.
All right. Bills 14 through 19 pass 46 to 0. With that, we will move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion for Bill 13? In the back, yes. Intern Horning. It is moved and seconded to consider Bill 13. Will the author please come forward? Yes, sir. Senator Nichols. It's moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize. With that, if there are no objections, you are allowed to summarize.
Okay. This is an allocation from University Allocations Committee for the National Association for Music Education to have a recorder workshop. They expect about 30 students and 20 teachers to attend, and they requested $1,300, and we're recommending $1,300.
All right. With that, are there any corrections? We'll correct FY17 on line 1, and we'll also get line 7 corrected to say University Allocations Committee.
And then I have one for instead of the date on line 11 of November 4th, they change it to March 3rd of 2018.
March 3rd. 2018?
Yes.
Awesome. That's great. Are there any further corrections? Seeing none, are there any questions for the author? If not, thank you. With that, we will move into second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Intern Coordinator Jewel.
Okay, hi guys. I was here a little bit earlier, and the guy that was fixing this door said to tell you guys to not use it because it sets off an alarm and he doesn't want to fix it yet.
With that, are there any further second open period announcements? Caucus Leader Rostenpour.
Hi, everyone. Why is there always giggles when I get up here? So we will be having a concert at my house that is put together by KSTB 91.9, which is funded, I think, fully, partially, I don't know, through us. So you should come. There was a bunch of people that in this room that came last time. It was a lot of fun. This is going to be like a little bit lower volume. That was like the #1 complaint. It's going to be like a more chill, indie alternative thing rather than like rap and rock. So it should be like less loud. There's going to be like 4 bands from all along like I-70. It should be a good time. So 9:30 tomorrow, my basement, 1445 Laramie. Feel free to DM me and I'll get you the details.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Caucus Leader Rostenpour? Seeing none further speakers for second open period, Caucus Leader Pitts.
So Jonathan kind of took my announcement, but tomorrow the Government Relations Office will be hosting a ground back in which we'll be hosting the State Budget Director, Sean Sullivan. As you know, he's going to have a really interesting perspective on the state legislature, and we're really excited to have him here on campus. That will
Any questions for Caucus Leader Pitts? Seeing none, further speakers for second open period. Senator Hughes.
So once again, that Rights and Responsibilities panel is October 30th here at 7 o'clock. We have the executive director of the Kansas ACLU, the immigration law professor from Washburn, one of the university attorneys, and then also a local defense attorney. They're going to be talking about, respectively, voting rights, DACA, which I know we've been kind of talking as a big issue for us, and then, hate speech, which has obviously become a big deal. And then also just general good knowledge for college students to have coming out of Ivyville. The local defense attorney is going to be talking about police interactions. That is 7 o'clock in here, a week from Monday. Please come.
All right. With that, are there any further speakers for the second open period? Attorney General Hanneman.
I just wanted to remind people real quick, I've had a lot of questions about whether or not we're adjudicating the person that put up the Snapchat. I'd like to remind you that all judicial branch members, as well as all university staff, have to follow first. They can't release information on whether or not they're adjudicating an individual, what is happening with that individual, et cetera, et cetera. So even if something is being done or different things like that with different individuals on campus that have broken our student code of conduct or broken like the threat management policy or the sexual violence policy at the university, we're not allowed to speak on it. Second thing, if any of you are interested in the Attorney General position, applications are going to go live on November 1st. I'm working on that right now, but I'd love for any of you to stop by and come and talk to me about that position.
Any questions for Attorney General Hanneman? Seeing none, further speakers, Director Mindrup.
If you're looking for something to eat on Sunday, Kappa Gamma does Sigma Phi and Fall Fest, and have Santa Fe, so thank you, and $5 to get in, and have yard games, so stop by, 4 to 7 p.m.
Awesome. Any questions for Director Mindrup? Seeing none, are there any further speakers for second open period? If there are not, we'll move into reference of legislation. Bill 13 will be referred to the University Allocations Committee. And with that, we'll move into our second roll call.
And then just a side note, so I'm Caitlin Doherty. I'm your new student secretary. I'm super glad to be here. And thanks for your patience about your last names. I apologize. If I have mispronounced your last name, and I know I have, then just come up and talk to me so I can kind of get a cheat sheet on how to pronounce it so I don't do it again. And then if you're also not on the list, because I do know that the roll call list is not completely updated, then come over to me so I can put you down so I don't have to keep missing you. Thanks. All right. So Adams, Akers, Anders, Archer, Rinaldi, Bergeston, Bogener, Bolar, Brickerud, Dinez, Moranville, Dahl, Elliott, Flores, Fuller, Garcia, Garrity, Grandy, Hendrickson, Hyen, Ho, Hughes, Jackson, Jewell, Kallenberger, Kelly, Klein, Lonker, Maples, Markle, Martin, McDermott, McIntyre, Mertens, Meyer, Nichols, Nedry, Nordstrom, Ogren, jeez, Orth, Oxler, Penny. Papoon. Pitts. Pruitt. Renz. Rosenpour. Swanson. Okay. Tedrow. Thomas. Tuttle. Valdez. Bushcop. Works. Zwick. Bothwell. Carpenter. Grover. Hornung. Okay. Horton. Hoshkinson. Houghton. Jabin. Keeley. Here you go. Karamali. Kranha. Cynthia. Karanja. There we go. We're going to get it. Kellerman. King. McAdam. Malmberg. McCandless. Meinhardt. Peckert. Pelton. Putnam. Roth. Salverino. Shaw. There we go. Wheeler. Whitman. Witzke. There we go. Zeke. No. All right. 43 senators and 21 interns.
All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Senator Papoon. Is moved and seconded to adjourn. If there's no objections, we'll be adjourned.
I wouldn't know how to change it.